Hi, graphic novel class. I'm really sad that we're having to do the class this way, but I guess it's really important that we practice social distancing so that none of us who are, let me start all over. Those of us who are not sick won't get sick, and those of us who are sick will recover. So this assignment that I'm going to go over with you, it has two components. There's going to be a rough sketch, and then there's going to be the final drawing. So this assignment has to do with making the cover for your book, for your graphic novel. So first I'll go over the essentials of covers, and then I'll go over the assignment. Both this PowerPoint and the assignment will be found in a folder at the very top left-hand corner of our Blackboard page, and the folder is entitled March 23rd, please read. Okay, so let's cover the essentials of covers. So when you make your book, and let's say your book is in a bookstore, the cover is going to be what people obviously see first, and the cover is going to be what draws them to your book. So just like your individual panels and your pages, the cover should be visually balanced. So we talked about different kinds of balance. We talked about symmetrical, asymmetrical, radial. A lot of times covers will be, but not always, a lot of times they'll be asymmetrically balanced. Sometimes they'll be radially balanced, and then other times, like probably fewer times, they'll be symmetrically balanced. But you know, like you can do your cover however you want to in terms of balance. It's your choice. When you're making the cover, you have to also take into consideration the words that go in the cover, on the cover, and those words must, the text must interact well with the image so that overall the page is nicely composed and nicely balanced, so it leads our eye all the way around. So we're gonna start with this. We'll start with the Captain America one first. So like when we're talking about balance, you always remember that what makes an image well balanced is there will be an overall distribution of a basic formal element or a couple of basic formal elements. So I'm gonna start with the color red. So there is like red is distributed, it's not always in equal amounts, but it's all over this page, and it's set up in such a way that it moves your eye around. So even this little bitty logo of the Marvel Comics right here has got red in it. So we start with Captain America, and you see how the word curves, and that curve pulls you over to the red in this. I don't know if this is like a disc that's coming to attack him or what, but or if it's his shield, who knows? Nobody knows. So it curves and it goes to the circular areas, red areas on the shield, and you follow that curve down and you get to the red on his boot, and you follow that curve down even further, and you get to this red boot, and this red boot curves up and it goes to this red glove, and it's almost like there's a spiral of red, even this little bit of red here, that keeps our eye moving around the picture. Now, what other kind of basic formal elements are repeating themselves in this? Well, there's a lot of implied line. And if you remember, implied lines are, they're imaginary lines, but they start in one area, and where that like, let's say where this foot is pointing, where the foot is pointing leads you to look at something else. So for example, this foot right here, even though it's pointing down, the toe points up. The toe leads us to this shoe. That's an implied line that starts at this toe and leads to the shoe. Another implied line is created by the toe of the shoe that points up to, like you follow a curve and you get to that little bit of mountain. That mountain points over to the shield. The text of Captain America, you follow it, it points to the shield. You follow it, it points to the shield. You follow it, it points to this. His fist here, his arm curves a little bit. So this creates an implied line that goes to that fist. This arm curves, that creates an implied line that leads up to Captain America. This little, I don't know, I'm guessing this is a cloud. This cloud curves and goes back to Captain America. The text goes to Captain America, to Captain America. So you have like all these implied lines that keep pulling us into different parts of the picture. So you really want to think about that, because your cover picture, you want people to be pulled into it and to look at it. So let's go to Monster. So Monster's a little different, but it's doing the same thing. So if you look at this face, because of the shadowing and stuff in it, and the face, and in the, oh man, I forgot what this is called. Your throat, this is called your esophagus, your trachea, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Your Adam's apple, thank you. Like there's all these angles. There's angles in the shirt. There's angles in the way they did the text here. There's angles in the way they wrote the word monster. So all those angles, they're going different directions. So this angle here, keep following it. It leads to where it says a graphic novel. Keep following this angle. It leads to like his ear. The monster leads to his head. So all these different angles, they're kind of, because they're going different directions, they're causing the tension that makes us go across one direction, go across another direction. So all of that is pulling us into the picture. Then when we think about basic formal elements, another one that repeats itself are these dark colors, these dark values. A lot of them are black, or they're like charcoal gray. So you have it in Walter D. Myers, you have it where it traces around monster, you have it here where it says a graphic novel, you have it here in his hair and some of his, like the details of his facial features, you have it in the shadows of his neck, on the shirt, on this part. Now, I'm gonna talk about text in a minute, but you want the text to stand out. So because he's using a lot of charcoal blacks and blacks in this, he like wouldn't make the text be dark blue because you couldn't see it, or he wouldn't make it be brown because you couldn't see it. So in this area where this lettering is little, it's really important to be able to read it. So he makes the text white because that creates a high contrast between the black on this bottom strip and the white, so we can read this better. Now up here when he gets to monster, he's still using like a really highly saturated yellow with the black, because then that makes because the yellow is so bright, it makes the black, I mean, I'm sorry, it makes the yellow pop out against the black. And then when he writes the word monster, he does, obviously, like you don't want to have the background be yellow because then it wouldn't show up. So you try to get a color that is not as dark as the blacks or the browns, but is darker than the yellow. And in this case, he chooses orange because then that orange further makes the lettering pop out, and it makes the figure stand out against the background as well. So you constantly have to think about which one of these colors is lighter, which one of these colors is darker, and you have to play that against each other. So with this one called In the Pines, 5 Murder Ballads, there's, this is like a more simple design, but it also has a lot of things that keep drawing us back and forth. So you notice there's a lot of curves in this. So there's the curve of the stump, there's the curves in the raven or the crow itself, there's the curves in the branches, and then there's curves like the way this person, he or she, I don't know who drew it, did the lettering. There's lots of curves in the lettering. So there's a repetition of all these curves, and the curves don't all go the same direction. So the P, if you follow the curve of the P, it goes to the feathers. If you follow the curve of the S, it goes like, it kind of, you follow it back, it moves over to this side, or it moves over to this side. So because they're moving different directions, I hope this makes sense, it leads you to other parts of the picture. The crow's toes curl up this way. The branches curve this way, this way, this way. So they're leading you in different directions. The crow's body goes this way, but then because its head's turned, it pulls it back this way. So you're not just being led out of the picture. You're following all these different kind of curves. And then when you think about his choice of colors, like the black and the gray, they're really dark. The lettering has to be much lighter because you want to be able to read it. But then the background needs to be slightly darker than the lettering, because the lettering's against the raven, but it cannot be as dark as the lightest gray on the raven. So you like have to think about that when you're doing this. So so like the first thing we had to talk about is like the text and the image need to work together and be well balanced. The second important thing, and maybe the most important thing about covers, is you got to grab your audience through the use of color. So, oh heck. This cover, The Destroyer. I just learned about this book. It seems really cool, and I want to order it. It's about, so this mom's son is shot by the police, like he's mistaken an identity, and they shoot him, and so she is a scientist and she brings him back to life. It seems like a really, really cool book, and on the next page I show an image from it. So in this book, we know, we may not know this, but I know that red, pure red, is a really, really intense color, and it makes things pop out. Well, depending on what color they use. Now, if you look at the color wheel, which I don't have one right in front of me, but I'll put one on our page, the color that is opposite of red on the color wheel is green. Those are known as, opposite colors are known as complementary colors. If you use green, just regular green against red, it doesn't pop out. But if you use like a light blue green or a light green against red, it's really, really going to pop out and make the image show up more. So if this artist had just used red and brown on the child's body, the brown might pop out a little bit, but not a whole lot. So so using these highlights in this like blue, green, green on the brown make the body against the red really pop out. So I'm just gonna say this before I go any further. When you make your cover, it has to be in color. Like maybe one day when you're famous and you're doing a book and you want to do it in black and white, that's totally fine. But for the intents of this assignment, it needs to be in color. So again, let's just look at the lettering. So red is like you squint your eyes, red's really bright. And so against this red, you need to use something much, much lighter as the lettering. And that's why he's using this white in this case, so that if you used like blue or you used black or you use like any other straight up color, then you're not going to be able to read the lettering as well. So you have to think about that. So then we go to the Dark Knight Returns image. So the artist is not using a large amount of color, but they are using color. So the mask of the Dark Knight, or the cowl, I think it's called, is solid black. It is set against a background that are like gray blues, but each one of those grays is light enough that that solid black is going to pop out against the background. Or I'm not talking straight, it's going to pop out, let's just say that. So, but we still got to get some color in here, because if we just have the mask, it's not going to have the impact. So yellow and black, those are like real high contrast, where the yellow is a whole lot lighter in relative value than the black. So for this bottom area where the text is going, this artist chose yellow because it's gonna pop out. Then when we're thinking about balance and basic formal elements, since we have all this black at the top, we got to have black in the text so that our eyes are drawn down to the text. Because if it's some other color, the top is going to seem really heavy, and maybe your eyes are not going to be drawn down to it. So he has a solid black up here, then all these details with the lettering down here. Then he's got this little strip. I'm guessing this is like the cast of evil characters that the Dark Knight is having to deal with. And in there, just so it like stands out a little more and has a little more interest, he's using little bits of color into this. But those colors that he's choosing don't, they're let me think of how to articulate this. They are not distracting from the contrast between the black and the yellow, and the black and the white. They're kind of like adding to it, because there's bits of white in here which moves our eye around, and then the little bits of color, they're there, but they don't pop out as much as the black and yellow. I hope that makes sense. This is a case where the image is symmetrically balanced. This is a case where the image is symmetrically balanced, by the way. So people do use it. So the next one is the red version and the vision of utopia. Now this one's kind of like, it's got a little bit of radial balance going in here. So there's the radial balance of the rays that go around the woman and the child. So let's talk about the use of red in this one. So this red that this person used, it's not like a red, it's kind of a darker red. So it's kind of low intensity. It still pops out against the white, but it doesn't like grab you in the face like this red on the Destroyer and this yellow and black on the Dark Knight. But what the artist does to draw your attention is the red on the scarf is a much brighter red than the red in the title and the red in the name of the authors down here. And also, like, this one kind of grabs your attention. I'm gonna say it grabs your attention because of, you know, if they just did a background with like a little landscape and these people against it, it wouldn't have the intensity of these giant dark red radiating stripes that come from the background. That's my personal opinion. Now I'm just going to show you a few images from the insides of these books. So this is like these images from the Destroyer. These are pretty cool drawings, especially like the ones on the right. And then, so I guess I only had ones from the Destroyer. So then, so far we've covered the cover must be well balanced, and that includes the image and the text. They must work together. Then we covered the importance of having color grab the attention of the reader. And now the third part that's really important is the cover art should be reflective of the art within the novel. So like if you're drawing in a certain style inside of the novel, you want to draw in that same style on the outside of the novel, like it's like you're a novelist now. But like the drawing on the outside of the novel, in my opinion, should not be as detailed as like maybe some of these drawings are in this book, Black Hole. Let's go back to text working with the cover and also using color. So in the Black Hole, I really love, like, first of all, I love this drawing style with all this hatching in it. These are called hatch marks for those of you that don't know, and they indicate the shape of objects, but also how much or how little light's hitting the object. So I really love that style. But then I really love like the cover, the way he or she or whoever has not used like a ton of color, but because it's just like bang, bang, it covers up part of the face, and it this red strip down here that it's almost like this powerful stamp that they've stamped across this thing, making a really loud noise. I know that probably sounds crazy. So again, let's talk about rhythm and repetition. There's a lot of white in the details against this very black. So it's like, I think it's a really wise decision that whoever designed the cover, that they, on these red strips, that they also use white, because then that makes it a more cohesive cover, where the black, I mean, like the white is in the text, the white is in the hatch marks and the details on the drawing. And so it's like, I feel like this is like a really powerful cover. But also, back to what I was saying, the cover design is reflective of the kind of art that's inside of the book. So also, like when you're designing your cover, the mood and the content of the cover should match the mood and content of the story. So like if you're doing a book about these, I'm not sure what this story is about, but I have my best friend's Palestinian. So I'm imagining that these are Israelis that are hunting Palestinians in Hebron. So if this is like a book that's going to have violence in it, you don't want to come to the cover and put a bunny rabbit eating a carrot. So you also like want to match the intensity of the mood and the content of the story. So I like the way this cover is designed also, because what kind of balance is it? It's radial balance. So you have this guy here, you have it's using 1-point perspective in the background. So that is coming off the central point of this guy. These other guys are coming off the central point of this guy. Their legs are radiating out from that central point. And then I also like the use of color. So like most of the colors are kind of neutral and not very bright. But then this guy in the center, he's got this like bright yellow and orange working together. And then if you take yellow and you mix it with red, you get orange. So I think it's kind of clever that this is yellow, this is red, this is orange, and it's making it pop out more. So just remember, like, your book is about people getting attacked. Don't put kitty cats and balloons on the front cover. So then when you do your cover, there's always essential information that you need to have on the cover. There's the title, your name, and whatever else seems appropriate. Like in this case, what seemed appropriate was Red Rosa, a graphic biography of Rosa Luxemburg, but also a testimonial, utterly brilliant, Steve Bell, Guardian. So you, like when you're writing the stuff on your cover, in addition to doing the title and your name, you might also have like a testimonial. You don't want to have a ton of writing on the cover because you want the cover to be bold and grab your attention quickly. But if you have a ton of writing, then you're going to sit there and read it. It's not going to grab your attention as quickly. So the title should be eye-catching. It needs to grab you. The titles, the font that you use, it should capture the mood of the story. So like this is Rosa Luxemburg. Let me try to remember everything about her. She was arrested for treason. She was a philosopher. She was a writer. This is during World War II. So like like on her head, I'm going to get back to the title in a minute. Like this is the war. People are dropping bombs, and the red of the bombs match the red of the title. The image of the woman, like they're soldiers marching up her back. I never noticed that before. She almost seems like a Buddha here, calm, beatific. But then this Red Rosa is like, Red Rosa! It's just like screaming at you because of the intensity of her supposed actions of treason that led to like people losing their lives during the war. It's debatable whether or not she committed treason. There's all sorts of theories about it. So you want to like have this essential information. Don't overburden the reader with all this information though. Like don't put too much stuff. Have your drawing work really well with your title. So we have Red Rosa. Red Rosa goes like this, and the red's up here. So our eyes are following this red all around. The red is really intense. It's set against a background that is kind of, it's yellow, but it's a muted yellow. There's this repetition of this black here, this black in the details, this black here, this black here. Okay, so now we're gonna, you can like go through this as many times as you want to watch this video, but now we're going to go through the instructions, and the instructions I'll also have in this March 23rd folder. So, oh wait, here's some drawings from the Red Rosa. Oh, and what are these from? This is from I got these out of order. This is from The Dark Knight. This is from, I forget, it was the cover that was right next to The Dark Knight that I showed y'all earlier. Oops, my bad. Okay, so these are the instructions for the cover. They'll also be in the March 23rd folder, and there's a rubric there. So this instructions for the cover, there's 2 parts to it. And I got them out of order again. So let's go to this one. Let's start here. Instructions for the cover. So first you're going to do a rough sketch. And you're going to send me this rough sketch via Blackboard message before Wednesday, March 25th. I know that doesn't give you a lot of time. You can, how about this? You send it by Wednesday, March 25th, and you can send it by the end of the day. Then I'm going to look at them, and then on Thursday, and then I'm going to make some suggestions, and I'm going to send it back to you. So your rough sketch should be drawn in pencil on sketch paper. When you do your rough sketch, make sure your pencil lines are dark enough so I can make them out in the JPEG you send me. You're going to send as a JPEG attachment via Blackboard message. And you're going to save your JPEG file as your name, rough cover. Don't just send it as cover. I need your name on there, please, because then that's going to help me keep track of things. So the rough draft of the cover is worth 25 points. Okay, let's go back to that other page. I apologize for having these out of order. So then once I look at your rough draft and I send it back to you, then you're going to do the cover. The instructions for the cover, when you're doing the rough draft, you're only going to do that in pencil. So when you're doing it in pencil, the rough draft, you want to make sure that it's on sketchbook paper, that it does include things like the title, the name, anything else that you think is important on it. And the text has got to work well with the image. So the text and the image must work together to create a strong composition. For the cover, for the rough draft, you're not doing the rough draft in color. So don't worry about the color part of the rough draft. But even in your rough draft, put care and effort into it. Okay, so once you do the rough draft on sketch paper, and I look at it, I'll send it back to you, and then you'll do the cover. But don't start the final cover until I send you back your rough draft. So here are the requirements for the final drawing. The final drawing must be on a full sheet of Bristol board. This is your cover. The cover must have a 1/4 inch to 1 inch border around the edge of it, just like we've been doing with everything else. When you first start the cover, draw it in pencil. But then it has to be completed in ink and in color. The cover must include this text: your name, the title, and then anything else you think is important, like a testimonial. Best book I ever read, New York Book Review. The text should not overcrowd the image. The text and the image must work well to create a strong composition. I'm going to go over this one in a minute. The text and imagery should be eye-catching. So think about color, think about contrast in color, and think about that rhythm and repetition of basic formal elements that we talked about before. I'm going to go over that a little bit more. Try to be as creative and as original in your text and image as you can, and put care and effort into your work. Rushed and sloppy work will be graded accordingly. If you screw up, start over again. So let's talk about this in terms of all these things. There's not a border around this one, but the reason why I asked for a border is, let's say you decide you're going to print your cover. If you do your cover all the way to the edge of the page, sometimes when they print, they cut off about 1/8 of an inch. You know, like the printing doesn't, it'll be flush, and it'll go all the way to the edge of the page. But if you do your drawing all the way to the edge of the page, then when they print it, it cuts off some of it. So make sure you put that border. Then draw it in pencil first, and then include the title, your name, and a testimonial or anything else you think is important, but don't have a ton of words on there. Your text must not overcrowd your image. Your text must stand out. So let's look at this. This woman's hair is black and the text is done in white because that's a high contrast. This the color and imagery in the background is not really intense. So in this case, it's best to use a dark black for that text, because if you use like any other color, it may not stand out as well against that background. So, and then another good reason for using black for this text is because it does that rhythm and repetition where we have black, 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 black. So your eye's following this all the way around. And then there's also the rhythm and repetition of white. So there's white here, there's white in this, there's white here, there's white here. There's little tiny areas of white elsewhere. So the title and the imagery need to work together. So remember, we're thinking about like the flow of the composition. So this curves here, face curves up, leads us to this, leads us to this, leads us to this. Remember, like the first thing somebody's going to see when they see your book is the cover. Try to be don't copy somebody. Try to be original in both your text and your image. You can look up different fonts to see what would work, but don't copy the way somebody else has done theirs. Put a lot of care and effort into your work. So, so just remember, there's a rough draft that's going to be due first on the 25th, the end of the day. I said before, but it's going to be due at the end of the day on March 25th. And then the final cover drawing is going to be due March 30th at the end of the day. If you have any questions, read through the instructions that I'm going to post, but also contact me and I'll be happy to explain everything. And I miss y'all a whole lot. And hopefully this won't last forever. Alrighty, thank you.